Hey, welcome back to the Spector Creative channel. I'm your host, Toy Guru Neitlich. And if you're a frequent visitor to this channel, you know that I frequently do videos about my time in the toy industry. And a big chunk of that time in the toy industry was when I worked at Mattel. I was there for a little under 10 years, and in that time, I got to work on a ton of cool stuff. And I got to kind of be a spokesman to the collector community, and I got to meet a lot of amazing people who either used to work on toys or in the movie industry. It was really a fun time. It was a dream come true, and I'm honestly so grateful to Mattel for all the experiences I had. I didn't go straight into working on collector product or movie product, though. I started in the Hot Wheels group. For 2 years, I worked on Hot Wheels as a copywriter. I was a writer before Mattel, and that's what they hired me as, a writer. And I worked on Hot Wheels. I got to name cars. I got to come up with bios for characters like the Modifighters, which was kind of a Hot Wheels version of a Transformer. And I did all of the sort of the back copy, and I even got to name the individual cars. And contrary to popular belief, no, Mattel did not force me out in the end. I left on my own. Even though it was a dream job, I had the opportunity to move over to another toy company. My previous supervisor at Mattel had left before me, and he was now at Jakks Pacific and recruited me to become a director under him. And it was a chance to work on Star Wars and the Episode 7 launch, and that was a really awesome opportunity I couldn't pass by. So while I left Mattel behind, I didn't do so before one final big green project. And yes, I'm talking about the Green Lantern movie. So while most of the time I spent at Mattel in the Action Play group was on the comic version of DC characters, as well as the work I did on Mattycollector, I got to do a movie. Now, my first experience with DC as a brand was the death of Superman, and specifically this issue 18 of Man of Steel there. But my greater experience with the DC Universe was the Justice League animated series. I was a huge fan of Batman and Superman animated series and got into Justice League. And on Justice League, Green Lantern was not Hal Jordan, it was Jon Stewart, not to be confused with the host of The Daily Show. Now, at the time that the Justice League show was on the air, Hal Jordan, who was the main Green Lantern, I guess he was dead, I guess.
Got better.
And yes, get better he did. And he was now back in the DC universe by the time the movie was coming out. And, some of the best Green Lantern comics that had come out in a long time were out at this time, including all the multicolored Rainbow Lantern Corps. But I'll save that for a video for another time. So Warner Brothers and the Warner sister were just ready to bet big because Green Lantern was going to be their ticket to a giant shared cinematic universe. You know, giant cinematic universes like when Iron Man, Optimus Prime hung out with Buzz and Woody. We all love that stuff. And Amanda Waller, she was going to be the glue that held it all together, kind of like how Nick Fury does this for the Marvel Universe. And it was all set up for a huge amount of success. Green Lantern was going to launch this giant shared universe, and unfortunately, the film underperformed, and it didn't quite do this. Now, at Mattel, as I said, I had transitioned from Hot Wheels to the Action Play group, but I was doing the collector stuff, and I was a transfer into the group from Hot Wheels. I wasn't someone who was directly hired into the marketing group. So getting to work on Green Lantern was a huge opportunity for me to really prove that I could do a lot more. And to say it was a roller coaster ride is an understatement because it was so unlike anything I'd ever worked on before. Now, for a little context, we're talking about 2010, 2011. This is when Thor and Captain America, the very first ones, came out. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe was just getting started. And on paper, Green Lantern had everything a toy company could want in a superhero. It had a signature color, it had a signature costume and an icon, and the powers and how they worked, Hal Jordan or whoever had the ring could make anything out of their mind as a green construct. Guns and bats and frisbees and, giant hands, anything. And it was all powered by the ring. So you had a signature weapon that could basically create anything out of green clear energy, non-decoed clear energy. So yeah, it was very toyetic, as you would say in the toy industry. It had all the elements. Basically, it was the formula that a toy company was really going to fall in love with because on paper, it worked so well. So Mattel was all in. And everything starts with the script, and part of the process of transitioning into a movie-based property from what I'd done previously was got to go up to the Warner Brothers studios and get to a little bungalow on the lot and read the script. Now, one thing that, and I've mentioned this a few times, is, well, scripts are often very different from the movie, but toy companies, because of the timeline of production, have to start designing toys at the script stage, which is why you wind up with stuff like this: Hulk busting out of the Hulkbuster armor, or the infamous color change blade from Revenge of the Sith. Anakin's blade never changed color, but in the script it did. So that's why a lot of toys for movies don't necessarily reflect what you see on the screen. Other than that, the design process was basically very similar to what I'd worked on before in things like Mattycollector or DC Universe Classic, except for the sense that we had a lot more money, like a huge, huge tooling budget and a huge non-media budget, which meant advertising, which meant that we were not only going to make toys, but we were going to shoot TV commercials. Again, something I'd never done before. So this was a really big opportunity for me, for my career, for my experience, and yes, I was really excited to get to do this. When I was on Mattycollector, I kind of had to beg, borrow, and steal in order to get resources, sort of just making it up as I went and trying to do anything I could to get publicity, like shoot videos using a flip camera at my desk. Now on Green Lantern, everything was on a silver platter. If I wanted something, suddenly it appeared. It was like I entered a whole other world of toy making and consumer product making, where I was kind of treated like royalty, and my respect, even among my peers, went way up. Suddenly I was no longer, just this nerdy guy, but I was a legitimate brand manager. And I got to go down to New Orleans, which looks nothing like New Orleans Square at Disneyland. Okay, actually, it looks exactly like it. And I got to have some cool experiences driving around town and eating crocodile meat. And I got to go to the set and I got to see scenes filmed, and we got to go see all of the sets and the props. The thing was, we could look at the props, but that was it. So designers came with us. It was myself, my boss, PJ, who was also in marketing, and then we had 3 members from design and I think 1 or 2 members from packaging. So we could look at the props and sets, but we couldn't take any pictures. So all of the designers had to whip out their sketchbooks. The scene that was being shot that day was when Carol discovers Hal, and she's in her office. And I remember, because they shot the scene over and over, of her saying, "Hal, is that you?" I just have that line stuck in my head. Blake Lively. I was also amazed at the details on set. So many details that just never show up in film. Like on Carol's desk, she had business cards. And you never see them in the movie. I don't even think you see them like sitting on the desk. But not only were they there, but there was like a whole bunch of them, like 100 of them, in a little holder that all had her name and looked like real business cards. Something that would never show up, but it was there. Cool details. And the synergy of working on a movie line as opposed to, a comic book based line like DC Universe Classic was night and day. Because you had the movie studio, you had the consumer product group from Warner Brothers, and you had Mattel management all getting involved because a lot was riding on this. So we had items like the Green Lantern Gatling gun, which was our TV advertised role-play item. And we were able to work with the filmmakers and Warner Brothers consumer product group not only to get this toy more or less, and maybe a little less, in the film, but we actually got it in the trailer. And it was actually one of the very first effects they finished, and they did that specifically at Mattel's request, so that this would wind up in the trailer and help sell toys. We actually did a lot of role-play toys for Green Lantern. It was very role-play heavy, and there was kind of a way to make everything have that aggressive, boys action in it, from shooting discs out of the lantern to a capture claw that had to get cost reduced from like 4 feet to 1.5 feet. And there was the entry sort of shut-me-up gift, the impulse buy mask and ring. So yeah, there was a lot of different price points. It was a full planogram. I think we did like 5 feet. And of course, as an action figure line, there were action figures, which of course, as an action figure fan, I was so excited for. And a lot of folks, myself included, really saw Green Lantern as kind of the next Star Wars, in the sense that we had all these aliens. It was like the cantina on, up to 11. And so many different sculpts of so many different characters. We obviously had a very big tooling budget because this was a major tentpole movie line, but it also presented the opportunity that we could do almost any character without deco in clear green, and it was legitimate. So we had this really great way of amortizing the tooling by releasing sort of energy versions of the characters to save on cost. So that's one way we were able to have so many tools, because we had redeco opportunities. And remember when I mentioned earlier about how the script not matching the screen, the final cut? Well, this was Stell as he was in the concept art that we had to base the sculpt off of. By the time the movie came along, Stell, the robotic Green Lantern, had been completely redesigned and looked like this in the movie. So that's a perfect example of how toy companies have to start working on movie lines way in advance, basically based on the script and early concept art, and it doesn't always match. Now, the main figure line, the main action figure line, we obviously had the basic figures, were the deluxe figures, which had a brand new technology, at least for Mattel and for the boys' toy aisle, that it was basically plastic origami, is the best way to put it. And essentially they would fold up and then with a touch suddenly spring out like a construct, like a Green Lantern construct. So the giant fist would start off all tucked away, and then with one little touch, it would transform instantly. And it was meant to be like a surprise and delight feature, but it didn't always work. In fact, one of the main ones in the first wave just did not work at all, and boy, was there drama over that. But it still turned out pretty good. And because of the nature of Green Lantern, we were also able to get away with redecoing a lot of existing items, like this capture cloth that we had as part of our Kmart line, as well as this Green Lantern, I guess, walker vehicle avatar type thing. There were a lot of toys from other lines that we were able to take the tooling and just cast it in clear green and say, hey, now it's a Green Lantern toy. And it worked, because these were meant for kids. And we had to do a lot of customized product, because every retailer wanted to have something they could own. But luckily, with such a huge cast and so many different constructs that we could, do in different shapes, there was a way to do that. So we did things like pairings of Guardians with Lantern members as a customized program. That was sort of a subline of 6 different packs to do all 6 of the, well, actually there were more than 6, but we did 6 of the Guardians, as well as a minis line that I want to say was Target, maybe Toys R Us. Memory fades. I think it might have been Target, yes, because Toys R Us had the Movie Masters. They had Movie Master 2 packs where we took the collector scale and sort of plussed them up and did additional characters like Abin Sur, who was not available in the main line, which, speaking of, the mainline Movie Masters still blows me away how much tooling was put into this. Like I said, everyone was betting big. They thought this was going to be a surefire hit. It's got everything a toy line would want. Instant transformation, hero suits, aliens. One of the things, though, is with the Movie Masters, even though we spent a lot on tooling, all the characters were basically green. So they kind of all looked the same in package. We tried to do as many of the cool aliens as we could, and especially the aliens that had different colors to them, which wasn't that much. Sometimes you get a little gray. We did do one of the Guardians. I think we did the Evil Guardian. But, just to have some other color in there. And then the studio actually required that we do Hector Hammond, because they wanted to make sure all of the stars in the movie had some kind of toy representation. And it was good for us because we got to do, there were slightly different colors. It was, guy in blue suit with big head. And luckily, Carol was already checked off. Blake Lively got her Barbie doll, so we weren't required to do her in the action figure line because this counted as her toy. And there was a little synergy also with Mattycollector, and I had no idea I was doing the work of 5 people since I was also running Mattycollector at the time. And the other sane brand manager would have had someone else come in and run Mattycollector while he was doing a major movie line. But not me! I'm insane! So yeah, we did the oversized characters on Mattycollector as a way of doing kind of a crossover between retail and Matty, so you can get Kilowog and, the giant frog monster and all that, and complete your Movie Masters collection, and Kilowog would be to scale. Now, we could have done Kilowog as the Build-A-Figure, or the Collect and Connect figure, but instead we went with the big giant monster from the movie, which was Parallax. Now, this was a whole issue, because Parallax, like Stell, kept changing design as the movie making process went on. And the way he started, like the original sculpt that the Horseman did when we showed off the line to sales, was a completely 100% different sculpt from what wound up shipping, because the design changed a lot during the movie making process, and we tried to stay up on it the best we could, and at some point you just have to tool the figure. Originally, he looked a lot more like the comic version, and this was the version we showed to sales to get them excited about the line. And we had to change it as it went along to try to make it look more like he did in the movie. In fact, the final piece, which was the head, didn't ship till after the movie came out, and I remember Bill Beneke, the designer, being so glad he had a chance to add a little more black deco, because that's how it looked in the movie, with the black on the face. In fact, this part shipped so late, and because the line wasn't doing well at retail, because the movie didn't do well at the box office, we actually had to create another SKU just to ship out the remaining parallax pieces, because legally we were obligated to put them all out in a certain amount of time, because it was a collect and connect figure. We couldn't leave people without the head. My favorite parallax figure we did, though, was actually this one in the kid line, where it was kind of like a grab and crunch parallax, where it would roll along the ground, you'd hit a trigger, and it would have a little claw that came out and pulled Hal Jordan into him. It was kind of like, it was awesome. I mean, for a kid product line, again, before, the movie came out and didn't do as well as we all hoped, the toy line, and I still stand by this, was really awesome. We put so much into this, and this was a perfect example. This was a fun toy. As you rolled it, the arms would go up and down, and yeah, it was cool. Now, in the end, like any major movie line, and, I shouldn't be shocked by this, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, because you have Warner Brothers consumer product, Mattel consumer product, the studio, the design team, and it was like going from a small boat to a giant boat, from Mattycollector to a movie line, and it was a big change for me, and I was really glad for the opportunity. Of course, it was disappointing that when this product that we'd spent 3 years working on just, it sold, but it was not phenomenal. Again, that's directly tied to the box office. But I was going to take every, advantage I could get, and one of them was that I got to go to my first big Hollywood premiere. Yep, I was granted one of the very few Mattel premiere tickets that got distributed to the company, and I actually got two. So my wife and I got to go. It was like one of our coolest dates ever. I think this was shortly after we got married. But yeah, it was cool. It was up in Hollywood, and I got to hang out with Jeff. Jeff Johns and I had become friends through the course of making this movie, since we were like the only two people in the room that were actually comic book fans in a lot of meetings. And I actually got to meet Deadpool, which was cool too. I wasn't going to, bother Ryan at the premiere, but my wife insisted. And when she told him that I was the guy managing the toy line, he was so excited and came and gave me a hug. So got a picture. And still to this day, on all the clutter that's on my desk, there is a prop replica ring, not one that was sold, but one that was given to me by Warner Brothers at the end for a job well done. And I really treasure it because I had an amazing time working on the line. I hope this was a little cool insight on what it's like working on a major movie toy line. It was the only one I did, well, other than Star Wars, but that was a little bit more closed in. This was one where I was really in the lead. And it was a great time. I'm so grateful for Mattel for giving me the opportunity, and let me know your thoughts, and I'd love to share on the comments any other information I might have left out. Thanks for watching.